We're nearing the end of this module because we already learned a lot about the core concepts of Express.js. And this therefore is a crucial module because all the rest of the course will basically build up on this and this knowledge of how Express.js works. Now, even though our dummy app here is really simple thus far, we're already putting all our code into the single app.js file, which is therefore getting bigger. Now, obviously, for an app of this size, it's not a problem at all. It's still pretty small. But typically, we want to split our routing code over multiple files. We want to basically export our logic in different files and import it into this file. We could do this. We could create files where we export these functions. But Express.js actually gives us a pretty nice way of outsourcing routing into our files. And for this, I'll change our folder structure a bit. I'll add a new folder, which I'll name routes. Now, you don't have to name this. You could name it differently too. But it's a convention you often see, that you put your routing-related code, so your code that should execute 4 different paths and HTTP methods, that you put that into files which you store in the routes folder. And there, since we're building, or we're slowly building towards an online shop here, I'll add a route which I'll name admin.js, because this should be the route that handles the creation of products which the admin of the shop can do. I'll also add another file, and that will be shop.js, so basically what the users see, let's say. Now, we'll not build the full shop here. We'll slowly develop it over the next lectures and modules because it uses a lot of cool features like databases and so on. But we can at least start putting our code into these files here. The add product route and this product post request should certainly go into our admin.js file because these are routes that are reached by the admin. And the general route here should go into our shop.js file so that users that are visiting our front page see this route. Now, one convenient feature offered by Express.js to achieve this is to go into these files and import Express again. You can, and you typically do, import this into multiple files. And then we can use a feature of it called the router. Now, you can also create this with a lowercase r at the beginning. The name is totally up to you. And I do create that router by calling express.router. And this is a function I execute. This router is like a mini Express app tied to the other Express app, or pluggable into the other Express app, I'll say, which we can export here. So here I can use module exports and set it equal to the router. Now, of course, this doesn't do much. We have to use that router to now register things. And actually, I'll name this here with a lowercase r to be in line with my other names. This, however, has to have a capital case R. So now the router here can be used to, again, define a use function for all requests, a get function for get, post for post, and so on. So basically, we can go back to the app.js file, cut these 2 admin routes from there, put them in here in the admin.js file, and simply replace app with router here. Now the router gets exported. So the router now has these 2 routes registered because we exported here, and this is the object on which we register these routes. The other code can stay as it is because the router functions here basically work in exactly the same way as the app use function does, or the app get and so on function does. I'll rename this to get though, because I only want to handle get requests to add product and return this form. And with that, with this exported here, we can now import that into the app.js file. Now, for this, I'll add an import at the top, separated from Express to make it sure or to make clear that this is my own file. And I'll name it admin routes. The name is totally up to you, but I do require a relative path to the routes folder, and then in there, the admin file. And you can omit the .js, as I already explained. This will be added automatically. So now this is importing this router object here. And this router object in turn has these routes registered. And the nice thing is about this router that it is actually a valid middleware function. So we can take admin routes and just call app use and put our admin routes in there, just like this. Not calling it like a function, so without parentheses, but simply just the object itself, the router object we're exporting in this file. We can use this here, and now this will automatically consider our routes in the admin.js file when funneling the request through this middleware here. Now, just as before, the order matters. So if we put this after this middleware, we will never reach that. So this hasn't changed. Now we can do the same for our front-facing route here. Let's go to the shop.js file, and there again, feel free to pause the video and try this on your own. Try to implement this with the Express router as we just did in the admin.js file. Were you successful? Let's import Express first of all by requiring Express. Then let's create that router object by calling express.router as a function. Let's export the router here. And let's then use app_use or paste in what I copied, but replace app with router and maybe use with get. You don't have to do that. The use method would exist too, but now we only handle get requests here. Now we can go back to admin.js, to app.js and import our routes there too. The order of the imports doesn't matter. So my shop routes, I require them from the routes folder and they are from the shop.js file. And now here, again, the order matters. We should register this second. Now, if I save this and I reload add routes, add product, this works. Now, actually, here's one important thing to understand. Even if I would switch the position here and have shop routes first and I reload, it would work. And we would not end up in this route. But this only happens because I have get here. Get, post, and so on will actually do an exact match here. If I would use here, as I did before, to handle any incoming HTTP method, then if I reload here, we see hello from Express again. So this exact matching is not achieved by using the router, but because we use get here. And that would have been the same if we stick to the app way of doing this in the app.js file we had previously. So get also makes sure that it's not just a get method, but this exact path. And therefore, now, if I enter some random stuff, I actually get an error because now I got no single middleware that would handle this. But I do have my route set up here now and split up and then registered here. And as I mentioned, it's not the worst practice to still care about the order here, even though at the moment it'll work fine no matter what the order is. But if you ever change something back to use, it would matter, and therefore, why don't we just care about it right from the start?